Thank you very much for coming. And this is a presentation that I have given a couple of times, and so let's just jump right in. Um, First off, I would like to a big thank you to the folks from Holly, and of those of you that don't know that, that's the Howard County Legacy Leadership Institute for the Environment, and they are the ones that convinced me that this would be a good thing to do and have taken care of all of the registration parts. And so I really appreciate all the work that they have done to do this, and they do really, really good work. So the agenda is, well, first of all, who and what are Electrify Our Future and Electrify HoCo? And then what is it that we're trying to do? And the answer to that obviously is to convince the county government to electrify all new buildings and substantial modifications to those buildings. And there are three reasons that we think this is important: for the climate, for the health and safety of the residents of Howard County, and for the cost to future generations of the people that are going to occupy these buildings. So then what do the county building codes have to do with this? What are the benefits for the county? And finally, how can you help? So this is being presented by two different groups here today. One is Electrify Our Future, and it's an organization created and led by students of Howard County in the public schools. And then Electrify HoCo is a sort of an ad hoc coalition of various groups in the county. You can see all of their logos on the screen there, but there are 25 different organizations that are a member of this, and we have signed some petitions and stuff. And so we've got about 110 people that are responding to the work that we are sending out. Now, we're going to start the meeting tonight with two members of Electrify Our Future, Anjali and Neil, who are both students in the high school. And I think Anjali is going to start. And so I will stop sharing. Anjali, you have the ability to unmute yourself. And so when you see your face, then you can start talking. And there you go.
Hi, Phil. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. So, hello everyone. Again, my name is Anjali Ganglam, and I'm a senior from River Hill High School, and I'm a co-founder of Electrify Our Future, which is a youth organization that advocates for electrification and sustainable development policies. So today I just wanted to give a little bit of a spiel and perspective on into my experience as a student and resident of Howard County for around 12 years, more than half my life. So throughout electrification benefits not only economic policies, but it also helps our environment and is also a better it also aids with our health as well, providing a healthy and sustainable future for us all. I've experienced firsthand in Howard County the impact of policies and codes from both a student and a resident's perspective, and I know that the fact that these policies and codes have on the community. At school, we learn about the current state of our environment, greenhouse gas emissions, and sustainable practices, and learning about these policies is really great. But taking the information that we learn and applying them through policy and building codes, such as these new building electrification codes, would be impactful. Students and the youth of Howard County have already shown support for building code revisions through the massive support that we've gained from CB5, which I'm sure we'll talk later about in the webinar about CB5, and from the numerous signatures and petitions that we've gathered in support of statewide electrification that we lobbied for last year. We, the youth, are the ones who will be impacted by the decisions made today, and the decision to support revisions in building codes is a choice made in support of a clean and healthy future for us all. It is better that we try to act now rather than waiting for the uncertain promise of later. Supporting electrification now would pave a legacy that would encourage more development and sustainable solutions for the future. So I hope this webinar will provide you all with some more information and insight into new building electrification. So thank you.
Okay, and thank you. So now I will spotlight Neil. And Neil, you can unmute yourself and away you go.
Of course, thank you. So, hi everyone, my name is Neil Gatturi, and not to kind of reharp on what Anjali said, I want to kind of make my remarks a little bit more broad, right? So, I know I'm young. I'm 17 years old. I'm also a senior at River Hill like Anjali, but I also know that climate change is not just my generation's problem. It's all of ours. What we're facing isn't an abstract projection of what, our climate and our world is going to be like 20 or 30 years from now, right? It's here. It's heat waves, it's wildfires, of course, it's floods, it's real challenges that are impacting real lives. And while these issues can feel overwhelming, and they definitely are in some cases, I believe that there's true and genuine hope if we work together, right? As young people, we are deeply invested in this fight for a better climate because we're the ones inheriting the future, of course. But we can't do that alone. Your experience, your influence, and the decisions of the people on this call to support the fight for climate policies have the power to amplify change in ways that we simply can't yet, right? I'm 17, Anjali, I think you're still 17. Like we can't vote. You know what I mean? Like this is an issue that we are, you know, very uniquely exposed to, but also uniquely pigeonholed in terms of what we can do. So, this is my voice, Anjali has her voice, and we use that where we can. But again, we need help and we need a coalition to bring ourselves together so that we make, real progress. So, by engaging in climate activism to kind of wrap it up, we're all taking a stand for a better future, right? Maryland is one of the most climate at risk states, right? And so we want a Maryland with cleaner air, healthier ecosystems, and opportunities for future generations to thrive. You know, Anjali and I sort of came up with like a little adage that kind of defines the work that we do. We choose action over apathy, solutions over excuses, and unity over division. And we believe with those core organizing principles, we have the chance to inspire real change and to make a real impact in this fight, both Maryland, Howard County, nationally, through, the work to make real climate progress. So thank you.
Thank both of you. I really appreciate you being here tonight. So let me go back to sharing my screen. There we go. We're back. Okay, so after you hear the very eloquent words there, so what is our goal with these coalitions? And it's very simple. We are asking Howard County government to show national leadership by implementing an all-electric building code. These buildings would be cleaner, healthier, and less expensive to build. Now, earlier in the summer, I'm sorry, in the early summer, we are expecting the county executive Ball to propose legislation which would include updating the county building codes. And we have asked him in conversations with his staff members to include clean, green, and healthy requirements for all these new buildings and significant renovations. We hope that he will do that. However, if the county executive does not do that and include those requirements, then we will ask the county council to amend proposed legislation for clean, green, healthy buildings. So what are we talking about when we talk about cleaner buildings? These would be buildings that would use heat pump technology for heating and hot water rather than burning fossil fuels. These buildings should use induction or electric resistant ranges for cooking. And it's interesting to note that this is part of the county's climate forward plan. And so we're just simply asking them to implement those requirements. Now, it'd be really nice if they also use network geothermal or virtual power plants, solar and EV chargers. But let's, sort of start with the stuff that we can do at the beginning. And so, as everybody probably knows, the Earth is just getting hotter. Climate change is real, like Neil said, and the impacts are growing, and the impacts of weather-related events are growing stronger. There isn't a week that goes by that there's not something in the news that talks about what's going on with climate change. Right now, it's all about the fires in California. And recent projections are suggesting that that's going to cost $150 billion just to get Los Angeles back. Now, last year, of the total of climate disasters that cost at least $1 billion or more, there was $182 billion last year. We're almost 80% of that here in the third week of January. So it is clear that this is a problem. Concentration of CO2 is exceeded 420 parts per million. It's been 3 million years since the Earth saw that. The potential of the atmosphere is to hold heat is 51% higher. The UN Environmental Program says that we are on track for a 3.1 degrees centigrade rise in temperature by the end of the century. And I just want to put that in perspective, but the difference in temperature between today and the end of the last ice age was only 9 degrees centigrade. 9 degrees, think about that. 3 degrees is 1/3 of the difference between us today and 2 miles of ice. Think about that. And over the last couple of months, the global average temperature has risen by 1.5 degrees over the early historical times, which is hotter than any time that human beings have been on the earth. So this is here. And in response to this, the state of Maryland and Howard County have made greenhouse gas reduction mandates. Climate Solutions Act of 2022 requires reduction by 60% in 2031 and net zero in 2045. And so that term net zero, just to make sure everybody understands, is the amount of CO2 that you put into the atmosphere minus what comes out by either technological processes or natural processes, such as a forest, must be net zero by 2045. Howard County Executive Calvin Ball mandated this through an executive order, made it a little bit stronger. However, the county is not on track to meet those goals. So buildings are a major source of greenhouse gas emissions in the county. Approximately 40% of the county's greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings, and about half of that from each of the commercial or residential space. Now, 11% of the total emissions come from directly burning natural gas or oil or propane in buildings, and the rest come indirectly from generating electricity. So any building that is built now that has fossil fuel combustion in it, those emissions will never decrease, whereas the indirect emissions will decrease dramatically over time as the generation of electricity becomes cleaner and greener. And so every new building that will be built that it burns fossil fuel will be emitting those greenhouse gases for the lifetime of those appliances, which is 20 or more years. And please note that 20 or more years is 2045, which is beyond the net zero time. So that's an issue. So what is methane gas and its indirect? So this is something that people call natural gas, but it's just refined methane. And it's a very powerful greenhouse gas. And it leaks constantly from drilling and transportation and other processes. When methane is burned, it produces CO2. In the US, 93% of human CO2 emissions come from methane. While CO2 is the principal atmospheric cause of warming, that's because there's more than 200 times as much CO2 in the atmosphere than methane. And according to the Environmental Defense Fund, about 30% of today's global warming has been caused by methane from human actions. So that's there. There is a difference in the global warming potential of methane when it's compared to CO2. And methane is a much more, let's call it efficient greenhouse gas. It's 84 times greater than CO2. The difference here, though, is the half-life of methane is about 9 years. So any methane that goes up, it will degrade, over a half-life span of about 9 years. And that's compared to CO2, which is 120 years. So clearly, rapidly cutting methane emissions would help tremendously. It's one of the quickest ways to start actually reducing temperature rise. And building electrification offers us significant opportunities to do this. Another point that Anjali brought up is that burning methane is unhealthy. There are about 34 million families in the US that live in unhealthy houses, and methane gas or pollution in houses with gas stoves have a significant association with higher asthma rates. And children in homes with gas stoves are 42% more likely to have asthma. And the issue here is that asthma is more than just the immediate health issues with the children, but kids with asthma miss more school. They're likely to have lower academic achievement since they're not at school, which leads to lower earnings. And so it's just a problem that it's like the gift that keeps on giving. That if you have asthma, even though it may not show up in the direct medical cost, it will have costs to our society over the lifetime of those children. And fossil fuel heating contributes to unhealthy air pollution. There's enough NOx pollution that comes out of stoves than is in all of the state diesel fuels. So a very, very unhealthy thing. And methane gas is dangerous. I'm certain everybody remembers the office building over on Stanford Boulevard that blew up in 2016. There's a picture of it on the bottom left-hand side. On the right-hand side is an apartment complex down in Silver Spring. There was an explosion up in Harford County in the fall last year, I think, that 2 people were killed in, one of which was a service person coming to help solve the smell of gas in the house. So it's dangerous. And methane is expensive. If you look at the chart over on the right-hand side, you can see that there are 2 different colors. The bottom color is the delivery cost of the methane that is charged to the customers, and this is an average bill over each year as we go through. So this is an average for all the ratepayers. And so the distribution cost since 2006 has gone up from about $400 a year on average to over $1,000 for the year for that family. So you can see it's gone up over 2.5 times. If you look at the supply, which are the lighter blue numbers, you can see that fluctuates all over the place. And that is that's what happens whenever there is, a war somewhere, or, the Russians invade somewhere, or there's a disruption in the supply. And so you can see that, this cost is steadily going up. And the reason that is steadily going up is that the energy companies, the gas companies, have been taking advantage of this program called STRIDE, which is a state of Maryland, which allows them to propose what we thought would be, safety features in upgrading the gas delivery system. But what the companies are doing is they are investing in expanding the gas infrastructure. And so there's a quote on the bottom of this chart here from the Office of People's Counsel. It says, the company's latest proposals demonstrate the gas utilities' commitment to locking in massive investments in their fossil fuel systems as fast as they can, despite the near certainty that the technology and climate policy will render those investments obsolete. Customers are at great risk. So this is why the cost is going up, and it will continue to go up. To go a little bit further, this infrastructure that they're building has a lifetime of 50 years. Remember, we got to be net zero in 20. So why are we building this? And the answer is BG&E, or the gas companies, are guaranteed almost a 9.5% profit on investments. and gas customers are obliged to pay this, whether it is a good investment or not. According to the Office of People's Counsel, Maryland ratepayers will be asked to spend $41 billion, that's capital B for billion, through 1945 to compensate for this. And what this will do is users with the means to switch out of the methane system and electrify will decrease the number of ratepayers, which will up the prices for those people that are still left. And the people that are left will likely be lower income people, which means their bills will go up and they will be left holding the bag for this, which worsens the climate justice for families with low income. So this, to me, seems like a very cynical method to extract billions of dollars of profits at the expense of customers. The flip side, electrical appliances are more efficient and they are cheaper to operate. And fuel cheaper to operate means money savings. You know, air source heat pumps can be 3 times more efficient than a gas furnace. Gas furnace can only produce the amount of energy that is in the fuel itself, which means it can never be greater than 100% efficient, whereas a heat pump actually doesn't create heat, it moves heat, and it can move 3 times the amount of heat for unit of energy that goes into it. So they can be 3 times more. They're not efficient, but they're more effective because of the technology that's there. Similar things for hot water heaters, heat pump hot water heaters, and clothes dryers. And ground source heat pumps, i.e. the geothermal, are even more efficient. So this is not chump change. In a recent RMI study that used to be called the Rocky Mountain Institute, states that all electric residential new home construction is more cost effective to build and operate than fossil fuel homes. And this is true in almost every climatic region in the US. And there is growing anecdotal evidence, and some of the people on this call are probably aware of this, that induction ranges, which have more precise temperature control, are safer and more efficient, easier to clean, and less expensive at construction. So cheaper is a good thing. Okay, so for all these reasons that we ought to do this, so what does this have to do? What do we have to do to get to this point? And the international energy codes are out there. They're kind of a mess right now, but we're making progress on there. But fundamentally, we need the county to revise the building codes to require clean, healthy, safe fossil fuel new buildings and substantial renovations. Now, this is generally done on 3-year cycles, and many times this is almost perfunctory work. The executive will propose this to the county council, they'll ask a couple of questions, and they'll pass it, and off we go. But now, since we have this electrification argument going on and people don't believe in climate change, suddenly it becomes much, much more controversial to do this. So the county executive should propose the revisions, and the council would normally approve them, and we are asking him to include it. And if he doesn't, we're hoping that the county council will amend the proposals to do this. So how would the county benefit? Well, first, it would set an example for the state, the region, and the nation. You know, right now there are several jurisdictions around that are starting to work on this. Berkeley did it. New York State is in this area. So there are other jurisdictions that are starting to do this. We would be more likely to meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals if we started down this road. And there was a comment I meant to make earlier that the number of houses and the amount of building that's going to be done in Howard County is not all that big, which means that this is actually both a very small step and a very large step. It would not have huge impacts on the amount of greenhouse gases to start with, but it would have the effect of stepping up national leadership. So it's like that old saying that, you know, the great journeys often start with a single step. And that is what we're asking, is a single step to start moving forward this. Back to the list. This would also ensure that people living in new buildings don't get left holding the bag for all of this $40 billion that are there. Because remember, they have new building and new stuff, new appliances in it, so they're going to keep it for 20 years while they're doing this. This would also ensure that people living in new buildings are healthier, hopefully avoiding asthma in childhood and COPD in older adults. And I think it would also brand Howard County as an even better place to live and do business. So there's good reason to do this. So what can you do? So we are building an active support for clean, green, healthy building code, and we need everybody's help. So if you talk to people tomorrow, tell them about what you learned tonight. And the county government needs to see us and hear us. There was a county council work session on Monday, and I was invited to come and speak to it along with someone from the Rocky Mountain Institute. And we just brought some friends with us with our little green t-shirts, and they saw that there were a lot of people that were doing that. We've been sending postcards, and we can provide them for folks to sign and send them in to the executive and your county council member. There will be public hearings over this legislation sometime this summer. We'd invite people to testify before the council, not just for the activists, but everyday citizens should be doing this. And you can do it in person, you can send it email, or you can write a letter and mail it to them. If you bump into your county council member at Meriwether or somewhere like that, tell them that this is important to you, or you can visit them in their office. Ask your friends, families, neighbors, faith groups, and civic groups to join in. But most of all, what we need is your email address so that we can keep you informed of what's going on, let you know when these, public hearings will be held, when you can call folks and do that. And that is what I'm really asking for you to do this evening. And I'll put up a QR code that you can do this with. So this is the crowd that we took at when CB5 was passed last year. You can see Neil and Anjali and a lot of us in there. There was a big turnout. We all had these lovely t-shirts on. It was there. And so Electrify Our Future and Electrify HoCo can be you. And so here is a QR code. If you just scan that with your phone and put your email address in it, there's just a little Google form to fill out, and then we will keep you up to date with what is going on